All right, guys, it's time for another show. What's
Yes.
going on today?
Hey, Jerry and Emerson, we have with us today. It's another Shark Tank episode.
Shark
We
Tank.
have yeah, Shark Tank. We have although this one got investment. The last Shark Tank person that we had, she just created some drama on the program. This
Right.
one's a
Somebody
little
dumped
different
water.
because they actually created investment, which is why they're there in the first place. But we do have David Walton with us today. He is the founder of a new company called Vayu Sleep. They have an AI face scanning technology that will then allow them to produce a custom CPAP mask for patients who need something that is not off the shelf from one of the major manufacturers.
So when you say
That's
custom,
amazing.
this is kind of like the old school way where somebody had to come in with the putty or the gel or whatever and kind of form something on the patient's face and make a
Yeah,
mask.
it's been a few minutes since we had a custom uh, CPAP mask available on the marketplace. I don't even remember
Wow.
what those masks were called. Do you, Emerson? Do you remember any of the
I don't actually,
names of
but
any of the masks?
what's I'm curious about is, Philips brought out a version like this. So I wonder what the difference is. They had the mass selector and it kind of gave you a nice picture of what you might be able to use with a patient. So I wonder what the difference is going to be. I'll have to ask him about that.
Yeah.
Talking
Well,
about mask selector, we've had a couple of people that on the show that had that kind of technology, right? So I wonder what really is the difference here.
yeah, it's funny. I don't know if you guys saw it, but the Uncle Nico out of Australia, he was playing around recently with ResMed's. Now theirs is an AI facial scanning software that's available on their website, and he was putting like a Respironics mannequin head, in the camera to get the scan. So that was a pretty funny way to use some of the new technology. But yeah, you can go to ResMed's website today and they'll do an OSA scanning of the face, not to get a mask or to get CPAP, but just to tell you whether you're potentially, you may have sleep apnea based on your anatomy.
Wow, that's crazy.
It is.
Wow. Well,
Let's get to
with
the show.
with that being said, yeah, I was going to say that's interesting. So let's get to it then.
All right. Lights out.
Now, a word from our sponsor, Medbridge Healthcare. Medbridge Healthcare is a leading provider of sleep lab management services and home sleep apnea testing. Medbridge partners with hospitals, healthcare systems, and medical academic institutions to offer comprehensive, fully integrated services for sleep disorders. Fisher & Paykel Solo is the world's first auto-fit CPAP mask. It simplifies setup with its revolutionary auto-lock technology. Simply stretch to fit, touch to adjust. Go to fphcare.com/solo.
All right, welcome everyone once again to another episode of Sleep Tech Talk, the sleep podcast with your hosts and friends Emerson Kerr, Robert Miller, and me, Dr. Gerald George Mannikarote. Folks, we can't thank you enough for all that's going on and all that you've done for us. It's been a great ride. And man, so many episodes, and that's all because of you. We're able to bring out so much more content for you. And sorry about the tip of the slung there, but so much for we can't thank you enough for all that you've done for us. Thank you for all the likes, for all the subscriptions, and most importantly, all the shares. You continue to share this podcast with all your friends, all the sleep people, people in sleep, in the industry, and especially sleep curious, trying to understand what's new out there and what's new in sleep technology. With that being said, thank you all once again, and a huge shout out to our sponsors. A big shout out to our clinical sponsor as well, Sleep Review Magazine. Please be sure to check them out. With that being said, Robert, what is going on today?
Hey, Jerry. We've got another great episode. Today we have with us Mr. David Walton. He is the founder of Vayu Sleep. You may recognize him. If you are a regular viewer of Shark Tank, you may have seen David as part of that program where he showcased his innovative approach to sleep solutions, impressing the audience with his passion for redefining nighttime comfort. Now he's here to share the science behind better sleep, the lessons he's learned from his entrepreneurial journey, and the practical tips to help you wake up feeling truly refreshed with a custom sleep mask. So, David, thanks for joining us today. We're happy to have you with us.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks to the team. You guys are doing an amazing job, and congrats on the continued success.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
So, David, do you mind jumping in to tell us a little bit of how did you get into sleep medicine? Because your background isn't specifically from that from our world, I would say.
That's right. So I graduated from the Royal College of Surgeons in the UK, and I was actually treating patients, older patients, for actually dentures and for night guards. And then I moved to the US and was working with a dentist who was very specialized in dental sleep medicine, and learned a huge amount from him. And then we went on to form Respire Medical, which was a custom mouthpiece for sleep apnea. And that was back in 2010, so quite a while ago. And then we grew that company and came out with several different devices in markets around the world. So we were here in the US and several countries in Europe. And it was really, a great experience for me. I ran that company for 15 years and then had a successful exit back in 2023. And at that point, it was a matter of, okay, what's the next problem to solve, and where do you really want to commit the next several to a dozen years of your career with. And being in the mouthpiece space for quite a while, it's still obviously a very important solution, and it's a great therapy, but it is still quite a small market. And there's reasons which we can get into with that, but CPAP is obviously still the gold standard and still a leading therapy. However, there is this compliance and patient satisfaction of, okay, patients on super happy, and there is some fall off there. So then we're thinking, okay, how can we solve that problem? And then I met my now partners, and they've developed a technology for actually custom swim goggles. So the way that works is you scan your face, and then a little robot goes out and cuts a gasket to fit your eye exactly for swimming. And for anybody who's swam, if the swimming goggle has any kind of leakage, then it doesn't work. It fails automatically. So they've proved this technology over the last several years, and developed essentially a custom fit by automating a manufacturing process. So we started to talk about, okay, how can we transition this from the swim goggle space into the sleep space? And with my experience in sleep and their experience in this custom technology, that's where we kind of married the two together and came together with this new venture. So that's in a nutshell, a little bit about my history, and then what we're planning to do with a custom made to measure CPAP mask.
That's fantastic. Now, how in the world did you turn that part of your experience into a Shark Tank episode? We had Una Kim with Sleep Reset and Insomnia Solution on the show, and it was interesting because it was at least something that I wasn't familiar with, that she was actually contacted by the show to participate. So it wasn't that she had applied; it was that they proactively sought her out and sought out her company. So similar situation for you. Okay.
So yeah, so my partners in the new venture, the team from the Magic Five, they were actually invited to go onto the show, and there's a lot of obviously time, and you're not quite sure if it's going to make it onto the show or whether you're going to get picked. But yeah, their episode was fantastic, and if anybody who hasn't seen it, it was one of these episodes where every shark wants in. And then Robert Herjavec ended up bringing double what they were asking for. So they was like, okay, well, they have to go with Robert. And then throughout the due diligence process, Mark Cuban got back in touch and was like, hey, we want to be a part of this deal too. So Robert and Mark joined the Magic Five team for the swim goggle side of things. And that was back in 2019. And as I think it was actually Mark on the show said, that this is not really a goggle company. It's a technology company. It's a robotics company. So then, that's when we started to talk about, okay, how can we use this technology in the sleep space? And as I said, the goggle space is great, but with the sleep opportunity, it's even so much bigger than that.
So, question for you, David. Did it immediately come to you that, hey, this makes sense regarding fitting into the sleep based on your background, or did the aha moment come because of their involvement?
Be sure to check out our clinical sponsor, Sleep Review Magazine. More details in
I
show
think it
notes.
was their involvement, and I swim a little bit. And when I tried the goggles, I was like, and anybody again who's tried swimming goggles and knows that you go through dozens of pairs, and because they all leak. It was when I tried it, I was like, wow, this fit is phenomenal. And also because it's custom, it makes it smaller, it's more compact. So then I started to think, okay, like if we can make this on a CPAP level and have all of these benefits, then I think that this could be a real game changer. So what we did in the very early stages is when people were scanning, well, first of all, let me back up. We wanted to validate, okay, is this even a need? Is there a need for a custom mask? So as people were ordering the swim goggles, we would actually scan their full face just to take the measurements of the nose. So we did this for around 6,000 patients, just to get the data to say, okay, what's the variation in width and what's the variation in height? And we found that actually the variation was huge. And one factor that we didn't obviously may think at the time was actually the depth of the nose as well. So you got these three axes that you're working with. And when you factor in the huge variation, we're like, of course there's leakage in masks. How can a small, medium, or large fit all of these patients that need to be treated? Now, of course, I understand there's a lot of variations in masks, of course, but that was really the catalyst for us to research that data and to say, okay, there's a huge variation here. And if we can really make something that fits to the individual patient, we make it smaller, we make it more comfortable, we reduce the leakage. Ultimately, we try and reduce the air pressure as well, which in turn can hopefully reduce some of the noise. And the stereotypical perception that people have about CPAP masks being uncomfortable, can we really change that? And that's really our driving vision.
David, there have been other versions of this on the market. I think Philips had one a few years ago called Mask Selector, and they incorporated a series of questions into this. When you sort of take a look at what you've developed versus what it sort of predated you, what is the difference? Clearly technology's leapt forward since Mask Selector came out. That was quite a few years ago. But what do you feel like is really different for the clinician that did see that and is kind of comparing and contrasting in their mind right now, saying, what's really different about this?
Yeah, and I think I would need to make the point that the mask selectors, there are a lot out there where you can scan your face and it'll say, okay, this is the best mask, this is the best mask. That's not what we're doing at all. This is a truly custom made component. So the way it works is you scan your face with the app on your phone, and then that generates an image of your face. And then certainly around your nose, though, it's going to start as a nasal mask. And then it designs the mask to fit the contours of your nose, the height, the width, the depth, all of those contours. And then we 3D print that component and that connects to the mask. So you get a reduction in seal because it fits to your shape of your exact facial shape. So again, I don't want to be kind of a mask selector. We're not directing people to a specific mask. We're actually making something that's truly custom to fit your face.
So part of what those things did do is, and I totally appreciate the customization. One of the challenges we have in sleep is there are basically three different categories of mask. You've got the nasal pillows, the over the nose traditional mask, and then we have our oral nasal full face mask. How do you help the clinician determine which one of those masks might be the right one for their patient?
Yeah, so we're going to start with just the nasal mask to start with. Just from a manufacturing perspective, it was the lightest lift. So we'll start with the nasal mask, and then we'll move into the full face. And we understand, obviously, from the research that we did and speaking with patients, that you do get a lot more leakage on the full face than you would on the nasal mask. But because the nasal mask, we can make it super small and super compact, we feel so that'll encourage patients at least to want to try something that is as small as it can possibly be, with also being truly custom. So starting with the nasal mask and then moving on to the full face design.
So David, do you see this as a potential, I assume when you go to market, it'll be an e-commerce cash purchase item for patients. Do you have any plans to, sort of scale and maybe become an option for patients that want to utilize their payer benefits?
Yeah, so we'll certainly, first of all, we'll start off with HSA, FSA benefits and working with DME accreditation for Medicare reimbursement, and then looking for more private payers. But, I understand that that's a heavy lift and it's not something to do straight away. So it is certainly going to be a little bit more on the premium product line. But certainly where we want to get to is working with some of the DMEs that are out there that are providing this, or some of even the e-commerce platforms out there. But I think before we get there, we really need to prove ourselves to the market, to the physicians, and ultimately to the patients that a custom mask is proving the hypothesis that I mentioned earlier, that we can reduce all of the leakage, the noise, reduce the size, and then get to something that's benefiting the patient. So yes, it's part of our roadmap, but certainly it's not going to be initially fully reimbursable with all of the payers.
Are you a sleep tech looking for new opportunities? Well, Medbridge Healthcare is one of the largest employers of sleep technologists, and they are growing. If you are a sleep technologist interested in a new position, potential paid relocation, or looking for a career advancement, consider a career with Medbridge Healthcare. Now back to the show. Fisher & Paykel Solo is the world's first auto-fit CPAP mask. It simplifies setup with its revolutionary auto-lock technology. Simply stretch to fit, touch to adjust. Go to fphcare.com/solo.
So I know that being a part of research groups that have developed different types of masks. All three of us, by the way, at one point worked for Philips Respironics. So we've had some some, I would say, experience in development of different types of masks and therapies. But but my question for you is, there was always a lot of research around the materials that were used in the masks themselves. So what have you found to be sort of successful in that, and maybe that's different than what's out on the market today from a materials standpoint?
Yeah, so the materials are interesting because the silicons that are used for a lot of the tubing and things, that's somewhat standard. But we're really looking to what material we can have that actually contacts the face. Now, of course, it needs to be a biocompatible product and it needs to be soft and cushioned. I think there's some masks that are coming out now that have some really interesting side pieces that rest against the face. So we're continuously researching what we can do there. But having something that's silicon, that's soft, that's biocompatible is ultimately where we want to get to. But because you're making it smaller, it also needs to be quite stable. It can't be super thin or of course anything brittle. So material properties is something that we've been looking into, and as we get further into the development, we'll be able to finalize.
So you had also mentioned a little bit earlier when we sort of talked pre-show that you're still in the FDA approval process, and that seems to be a bit onerous these days for sleep companies in the manufacturing space. Any timelines or expectations about when we might see Vayu Sleep, in the marketplace?
Yeah, so our target is towards the end of this year. I've been through the FDA 510(k) process several times before with my previous company. Obviously, the FDA is somewhat of a moving target at the moment. Obviously, there's some certain changes that are happening there, so that's really without our hands. But the FDA team that we have, the consultants that we're working with, are very experienced in doing this. So that our hope is that everything will be smooth sailing. But yeah, maybe check back in with me within another month, and I might disagree with what I'm saying here. But yeah, towards the end of the year is our goal to be in the market.
David, when you've worked with some of your test situations, what have been some of the feedback from patients? Because this is clearly revolutionary for a lot of patients. It puts a little control back in the hands of the patient of really having something that's made just for them, designed for them, whatever way you want to say that. What has been some of the feedback from patients? Sort of, I don't know if you do net promoter scores or anything like that, but what have you done to sort of measure that and to really see what that patient or customer satisfaction might look like?
Yeah, so the net promoter scores are something that we're continuously doing, but I think one bit of feedback that I can give is that it takes 10 seconds to explain this to a patient, and they're like, I get it, done, don't need to tell me anymore. We tell them the process, you scan your face, we then 3D print this component that meets all of the contours of your face. It's a custom mask, we reduce the leakage. It's a 10-second conversation, and it's simple to explain, they totally get it. So I think often with CPAP patients, and you guys have more experience than I do in this, that they kind of have the war stories that you mentioned earlier. You've all been through it, and convincing them that this is something unique, I think is a little bit of a challenge, because they've often tried many masks, but with something like this that they haven't seen before, and They haven't seen something that's custom made to measure just for them. I think patients have been very excited about it, and as I say, it doesn't take a lot of convincing when they see the technology.
So, David, just to kind of draw on to what Emerson asked and what you're saying right now, could you tell us, some of the stories behind that? Particularly, how was the comfort factor versus, your commercial CPAP mask versus the custom mask that you've provided?
Yeah, so we were actually quite surprised when we started to look at patients' current masks, and even just as they put it on, and if you look around certain points of their nose, and you're like, well, there's a gap there, and there's that doesn't really fit quite correctly. So that surprised us on the initial research that we did. The comfort factor is something that we've gone from what was essentially quite a large piece that fit around the nose to re-engineering that and coming out with it smaller and smaller and smaller, making it more compact, so the patient doesn't feel it quite as tight on their face. Now, another piece of feedback we got from patients is that sometimes if it leaks or doesn't fit right, that they just tighten the straps up and they're just tightening them in there, so it's just tighter on the face. But what we found is actually that you actually tighten it a lot less. You don't have to pull those straps super tight. So it feels as though it just rests on the nose. It doesn't have to be kind of super tight and compact to kind of make sure you don't get those leaks. Naturally, because it's custom and it fits your nose, it can just rest there. And so you're reducing the tightness of the straps, and the patients, I feel, really found that to be one of the key benefits. Because some of them say, well, yeah, it leaks, but I just tighten it. And then you're like, well, then what happens when you tighten it? Like, yeah, it gets super tight, but I just deal with it. And like, well, you don't have to do that anymore. You actually have it loose, just let it rest on your face there. So there's a few anecdotes that we've had, but the net promoter scores are going to be really key for us as we get into to mass producing this and making it for the tens of thousands of patients that are needing it.
Hey, David, one question just on a sort of I guess, marketplace, from a marketplace standpoint. Obviously, you're in the U.S., so the U.S. would be a target audience. But even seeing CPAP machines on Amazon, available on Amazon and other parts of the world, it seems like that this could certainly be a global product for you.
Yeah, we believe that because nobody has to come in anywhere to be fitted with by this. You could be on your phone in the US, or you could technically be in any country anywhere in the world. Now, there's obviously regulatory things that we need to go through in each country. But yes, because you can be anywhere and scan your face from anywhere, and we can ship to anywhere, it certainly makes it a global opportunity for us. And I think there's certain markets, obviously, India and China are kind of growing markets for sleep apnea. So that's something that we're educating ourselves on continuously. One of our physicians that are on board with us was explaining how the Indian market has grown quite a lot with sleep. Different price points maybe, but certainly that's a growing market. I'm originally from the UK, so I'm passionate about expanding to the UK as quickly as possible, because I know that they need help there. They don't have a huge amount of sleep in the US is very popular and very well accepted by patients, but in the UK maybe not quite as much as it needs to be. So yeah, I'm excited for that opportunity too.
Hey David, we need to get you connected with our good friend Adrian Zacher, who's been on the podcast from the UK, because he is absolutely expanding sleep services through the pharmacy network, which is a very unique channel. So we'll get you guys connected.
Yeah, I actually know Adrian.
Oh, good.
It's a small world in the UK. All of the sleep people know each other.
Fantastic.
It's interesting you said that about the UK. So one of my best friends, he actually lives and he practices in the UK. Shout out to Sanjeeva, who just got his FRCG. So FRCGP, he just got that a few weeks ago. So he was asking me, hey, what home sleep test can I use? And he sent me a whole list of recommendations, and I was really surprised to know how little he knew about the industry. About sleep. So what you're saying right now really reflects that. But without being said, we are getting really close to time. But anything else you want to add, David, to that we haven't talked about right now?
No, I think we've covered most of it. I think for people to find us, our website is vayusleep.com. You can find us on social channels as well. Hello@vayusleep.com is where you can subscribe to our mailing list and kind of follow our journey and be a part of this. It's exciting for us and exciting for our partners, our investors, to really bring this to market. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity to bring it to your audience too.
Hey, David, thank you so much for joining us. But before we close, I just want to ask, we know this is just around the corner, the FDA piece, but what else can people expect from you in the future?
Yes, so we certainly aren't going to just stop with just doing the mask. I think what we want to build is the most comfortable mask in the world, and then build services around that. So helping more patients get tested, get more patients diagnosed, and even looking at other supporting products that we can have around sleep, and not just be laser focused on the mask. But that is what we're focused on right now. We're not trying to do everything all at once. I think we all know that's not a great strategy. So we're going to start with this amazing product, and then add other services around that, with regards to telehealth and home sleep testing and diagnosis, and really supporting patients throughout their whole sleep journey. So that's the long-term vision, and then we want to ultimately get to, I think Dr. Chopra said it on your podcast a few weeks ago, that really looking at overall healthcare savings and how can we get patients onto a therapy that's not only comfortable but also successful, and where can we really help payers and employers bring down healthcare costs as a whole. So lots to do, but starting with this mask is where we want to be.
Well, Doc, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for sharing all that. And we thank our audience for joining us as well. Be sure to check out Dr. David Walton and Vayu Sleep. We're going to have more information in the show notes. But we also want to say thank you so much for all that you're doing for us, all the subscriptions, all the shares, as well as all the likes. We can't thank you enough for that. A huge shout out to our sponsors, and we say until next time, lights on. All right, guys, that was quite a show out there that we had. What did y'all think? Post cows.
It's really fascinating when you think about just the idea of customization. We're seeing it in so many different parts of healthcare, and here we've got a guy who's really going to a level that we kind of imagined, and we're seeing it in dentistry and sleep dentistry too. But to now bring this to the nasal interface, or the sleep apnea therapy interface area, is really fantastic. It was really nice to see that. I think there's a lot of opportunity for patients that want to really take control of their healthcare. This could be one of those angles.
I agree.
Hey, I just want to
mean,
mention that for the first time ever, we had a four-legged visitor on the
We
podcast
did.
in the background. So if anybody's out there and you watch the YouTube video, you'll see that there was a lady playing with a dog in the background as we're interviewing David. So that
Made
was,
it better. Made it a better
yeah,
video.
that made it much better. Although my ADHD was on, was going crazy.
I was going to say look squirrel, but it was dog.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yep.
Yes, yes.
hey, but it's cool to see that they have an office mascot over there.
Yeah, that was cool. That was
Hey,
cool.
but going back to customization, I mean, Emerson, you make a really good point. As we advance in healthcare, we're seeing more and more non-generic treatment modalities. Whether it's just forget OSA for a moment, which is what we're talking about in this case, but any other sleep or any other aspects of medicine and healthcare, we're seeing more and more customization. So it's really cool to see this as part of it with the mask. I'm just kind of curious where it's going to go, right?
100%. It was interesting because one of the last questions that we asked him is, where do you see this product going in the future? And to hear him sort of take a CPAP mask and a platform and start to build on that and build out a healthcare solution, it's pretty incredible to have that kind of vision. And he certainly has an entrepreneurial spirit to launch successful companies. So I need to know more people like that, by the way, in my
Well,
life.
it does make you wonder at what point, maybe this never happens, but we talk about direct to consumer solutions a lot. At what point do we start to see this become an over the counter type solution where someone's simply able to scan their face, scan their, just their whole anatomy from the clavicles up, and make a determination about, what their therapy should be. It certainly seems like we're getting to that place where that customization, whether it's the interface or what it might be, is you're just a scan away from it.
We
There
could definitely
certainly
see
is
that.
with all the direct to consumer things that are happening in the space today. There is this it has shortened the potentially for a lot of patients. It has shortened the window of time frame from diagnosis to therapy, and then to customize it also at the same time is that really is I think a differentiator from what's available today.
Well, can't wait to see that happen because that will be absolutely fantastic. Like you said, shortening that gap, or even as you said, Emerson, you have that experience at the over the counter situation where a patient could just walk in, get scanned. And you hear about these technologies and other things. That there was a store, I believe, the Levi store in San Francisco, where you could step into a tube of sort and lasers will scan you, and then you can get a custom pair of Levi's jeans, something just like that. But for something that you really need, like a CPAP mask, that would be absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. Hey, by the way, for the audience, we're all just back from Sleep 2025 and have lots to share. So maybe look for an episode where we come back and sort of recap what we saw and learned and what the latest and greatest is in the world of sleep.
Hey, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah, I wish everybody would have been there.
I know.
All right, guys, I think it's time to close it. All right, folks. Well, until next time, cheers.
Fisher & Paykel Solo is the world's first auto-fit CPAP mask. It simplifies setup with its revolutionary auto-lock technology. Simply stretch to fit, touch to adjust. Go to fphcare.com/solo. Before we go, we would like to thank our sponsor, Medbridge Healthcare. Medbridge Healthcare is developing innovative inpatient, post-discharge, and population health programs to screen comorbid conditions, diagnose, and treat sleep disorders. Learn more about their innovative solutions and career opportunities at medbridgehealthcare.com. Once again, you can learn more about their innovative solutions and career opportunities at medbridgehealthcare.com.